She dropped the pail. The water hit the floor first, then the metal. The boy didn't flinch. He sat at her table, bare feet dangling. His hands gripped the bowl she hadn't touched in years. Her brother's bowl. Same chipped rim, same crack, like a lightning bolt. The spoon moved slow to his mouth, dragging clumps of beans across his lips. He chewed without blinking. The sheriff stood behind him, hat in hand, boots still muddy. "You're late," the sheriff said. She stared at the boy. Her chest didn't rise. "What is this?" "He's yours now." "No. The paper says otherwise." "I didn't sign anything." "You didn't have to. Your brother did." A long time ago, she looked at the boy's collarbone, raw, burnt, rope mark, or scar. She couldn't tell. "That boy's not mine." "Didn't say he was." "I said he's yours." She moved closer. The floor creaked. The boy didn't move. "What's his name?" "Didn't give one." She glanced at the sheriff. "You just brought a child into my house without telling me who he is." He stepped forward. "You know him. You just don't remember." She shook her head once. Her fingers curled around the back of a chair. "Get him out. He eats. He sleeps. That's all. Don't talk out. You don't get to say no. Not on this. I didn't ask for this." "You did, years back." You just forgot how she didn't answer. The boy kept eating. The scraping of his spoon echoed louder than the wind behind the door. She pointed at the bowl. "Where did he get that?" "Cabinet." "That bowl wasn't in the cabinet." "It was." "No, it was in the crawl space. In a box. I put it there after the fire." The sheriff didn't blink. "Then he must have crawled." She turned to him. "Why are you doing this?" He walked to the door. "Because someone has to. And because this house remembers things. I want him gone." "Too late." "I said, you said nothing for 10 years. You buried your brother and locked the door. Now the door's open. That's on you." The wind caught the edge of his coat as he stepped outside. He didn't shut the door behind him. She stared at it, waiting for him to come back, fix it, and say it was a mistake. But the wind kept blowing and the boy kept eating. She looked back at him. His eyes were too steady, too still, not like a child's. He licked the spoon clean and set it down with both hands like it was something holy. Her brother used to do that, always with both hands like he thought it might break otherwise. She walked to the sink. Her hands shook as she turned the tap, but the pipes groaned and stayed dry. "No water." "Of course." She reached for a cloth. "You sleep on the cot." He didn't look up. She tossed the cloth on the counter. "I said." "I heard." Her knees buckled. The voice was small, soft, but it wasn't a child's. She turned slow. "Say that again." He stared at the bowl. "I heard." Her back hit the wall. That voice. It wasn't a memory. It was repetition. Familiar. "You can talk." He nodded once. "Who taught you?" "You did." Her mouth parted. Words caught. "Fell." "That's not funny." He didn't smile. She stepped forward. "What's your name?" He stood, pulled the chair back in, set the spoon beside the bowl like it was a habit. "Micah," he said. Her vision swayed. "Don't." "You asked." She reached for him but stopped. Her hand hung in the air. "Who told you to say that?" "You did." She stepped back. "Micah is dead." The boy blinked. "You sure?" "Yes." "Then why is his bowl still warm?" Her hand hit the wall again, this time harder. She dug her nails into the wood. "You're not him." He stepped around the table slow. "I didn't say I was." "Then stop saying his name." "You asked." "I didn't ask for this." "You did." Her knees gave out. She caught the edge of the table. The wood burned her palms. She yanked back. "You sleep in the barn," she said. "No barn." "Then sleep outside." "It's raining." "I don't care." He stood in front of the door. "You will." She moved fast, grabbed his arm, dragged him to the porch. He didn't fight, didn't struggle, just looked up as she opened the door and shoved him out. The wind caught him. He stumbled down the steps. She slammed the door, locked it, turned. The bowl was still warm, steam rising. She backed into the corner. Her breath is loud now. Too loud. Her brother's boots still sat by the stove, untouched, cracked. She hadn't moved them since the night he died. And now a boy with no shoes and her brother's voice sat where no one should have sat again. She closed her eyes, pressed her hands to her ears. Outside, the wind moaned like it remembered, and somewhere, under the floor, the pipes groaned too. The plate clinked as she reached across the table. He didn't flinch until she touched it. That's when he jerked back hard enough to knock over the chair. The crash echoed. He didn't cry out, just stood there breathing like he'd outrun something. She froze, hand still on the plate. Her eyes dropped to his wrists. Red bands. Not cuts, not grime, not rash. Burns. 2 of them. Perfect rings, like shackles or brands. "Where did you get those?" she asked. He stared past her shoulder like her voice came from another room. "I asked you something." He sat on the floor, cross-legged, silent. She crouched. "Those marks." He looked at her then, right at her. "You don't remember." "What?" "They told you not to." She stood too fast. The edge of the table hit her hip. She didn't notice. "You're just a boy." He said nothing. She turned away, fists clenched. "Sheriff said you didn't talk." "I don't." "Well, you are." He shrugged. "Sometimes." She gripped the edge of the sink. "Tell me where you got those burns." He traced something on the wood floor. Circles, 2 of them, side by side, then dragged a line between them. She walked over and wiped it away with her foot. "That doesn't mean anything." "It does to me." She grabbed a towel, slammed it onto the counter. "Do you know what happened in this house?" "Yes." "You don't." "You lit the candle." She turned around. "What?" "You dropped it." "No." He nodded. "That's not what happened." He picked up the chair, put it back under the table, sat down. She looked down at her hands. It was the stove. "That's what they said." He nodded again. "That's what they said." She walked over and grabbed his wrist before he could pull back. The skin was glossy, raised, pink in places, white in others, not fresh, years old. "These marks," she said. "My brother had the same, from the chains on the cellar door." He burned, trying to pull free. He said nothing. "You're not him." "No." "Then how do you know that?" He didn't answer. She let go. "The sheriff told me I imagined things. Said there was no lock on the door." He lied. He said Micah died in bed. He didn't. She sat down across from him. Her chair scraped loud against the floor. "What else do you know?" He looked down. "You won't believe it. Try me. They brought us there. Said it was just a place to sleep." "Who's they?" He looked toward the window. "Sheriff? Others too. You're making this up." He picked up his spoon, bent it slowly, without blinking. "You ever wonder why the door to the cellar still sticks?" She swallowed. "It's warped." "No, it's locked. It's empty." "It wasn't." She stood. I walked fast to the cellar door, pull it open. The hinges screamed. The dark yawned back. "See?" He appeared behind her, close. "Go down," he said. "You go first." He did. No hesitation, no fear. She followed, one hand trailing the rail, the other clinging to the wall. The cellar was colder than it should have been, the kind of cold that didn't come from the air. It came from memory. He stopped halfway down, tapped the wall. "Here, there's nothing there." He pressed his palm flat. They made us line up, back against the stone. One by one, she turned on the old pull chain light. It buzzed, flickered, then held. He traced something on the stone. Letters. They appeared faint, carved shallow. M. She moved closer. Next one said L, then T, then H, all the way down. Her voice was dry. "Names." He nodded. "Or just letters. Some of us forgot our names." She turned to him. "How old are you?" He shrugged. "Hard to say." "No." "Tell me 11. "You're not." "I am." She backed away. "You can't be." "Why?" "Because my brother was 10 when he died. And you look just like him. I'm not him. But you know everything he knew." "I only know what I remember." She turned to the stairs. "This is wrong." "You remember the fire now." She gripped the rail. "The stove caught. They told me that he stepped beside her." "No. The fire started here." She looked down, saw the burned line across the concrete, a faint crescent, like something had burst and been scrubbed away. She hadn't noticed it in years, maybe never. He walked up ahead of her. "You were supposed to forget." She followed, slow. "Did Micah survive?" He paused at the top. Ask the sheriff." "I did." "Ask him again." When she turned off the light, the cellar didn't go fully dark. Something beneath the stairs still glowed faint. They both saw it. Neither of them spoke, and neither one stepped back down. She scrubbed harder. The rag was soaked, the water long gone brown, but she didn't stop. The wood didn't give. It never had. Not in storms, not in winter, not even during the fire. But now, something about it felt wrong under her fingers. The grain split clean down the middle like a fault line. She pressed her thumb to the groove. It was deep, new, but the initials just above it were old, faded. M+S, scratched in when they were kids. Her brother had carved them with the hunting knife he wasn't supposed to touch. She'd told him not to. He said, "Then don't watch." She did anyway, watched him dig it in, tongue sticking out, grinning. That grin. Now she couldn't even remember the color of his eyes. She dipped the rag again, rubbed harder. The crack looked wider, as if the table had begun splitting after he died and hadn't stopped. She leaned her weight in and dragged the cloth along the edge. That's when she saw it. Micah, etched into the wood below the original initials. Smaller, neater. The curve of the M was exact, like someone had traced it from memory. She stepped back. No, she hadn't done that. She hadn't touched a knife since the boy came. She stared at it. The letters didn't move, didn't fade. "Micah," she said it out loud this time. The boy walked in barefoot, dragging his heels. "You called," she pointed. "What is that?" He looked. "My name." "Who carved it?" "I did." "When?" "Last night." She shook her head. "No, I locked the knives. You missed one." She stepped to the drawer, pulled it open, counted. 4, not 5. Her gut twisted. "Why that spot?" "It was empty." "No, it wasn't." "That's where," he cut in. "The old letters were fading." She looked at him. "You know what they said?" He nodded. M+S. "That's right. Micah and Sarah." Her throat closed. "You don't get to say his name like that. You said it first." She pointed again. "That crack. When did it start?" He didn't blink. "When he died." She pressed both palms flat to the surface. "It was whole. I swear it was whole." He shrugged. "It remembers more than you do." "Stop saying things like that." "I'm not lying." "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know this table." She turned away, picked up the bucket, tossed the dirty water out of the back door. The splash echoed. When she came back in, he hadn't moved. He was still staring at the name like it meant something sacred. "You think it's funny?" she said. "No. You're mocking him." "I'm not. You carved his name beside your own." "No, just mine." She stepped close. "Then why does it feel the same?" "Because you never really buried him." She raised her hand. I froze, lowered it. "Go to your room." "I don't have one." "Then find a corner and stay there." He didn't flinch. That's what they said to him, too. "Don't." He stood in corners until he forgot what light looked like. Enough. Then he started carving. She grabbed a cloth, covered the name, pressed hard, as if smothering it would erase it. The boy moved toward the window, looked out. "He used to stare out that same pain," he said. "I know." Waiting for someone to remember, she sat down. "You need to stop." "Why?" "Because I'm not ready." "For what?" "To remember it the way it really happened." He turned. "Then don't look at the table." She pulled the cloth away. The name was still there, deeper now, like the wood had absorbed it. "Did you burn your hands carving it?" He nodded. "That's how he did it, too." "With fire?" "No, with guilt." She looked at his palms, red, cracked. "You need salvation." He shook his head. "It's supposed to hurt." "You're a child." "Not really." She looked down again. The table had stopped being a place to eat. It was something else now. A memory with legs, a grave with plates on it. "You think he's still in this house?" The boy didn't answer. She whispered it again. "Do you?" He stared at the crack down the middle. "I think he never left." She stood. "Then we dig." "Where?" "Under this house. In those places no one's cleaned. He didn't move. You'll find him if you do." She walked toward the cellar. Her hand brushed the doorframe. Behind her, the boy dragged his fingers across the table once more. Another line appeared. She didn't see it, but the table did. And it didn't split. It was swallowed. She stood in the middle of the post office. A letter crumpled in her hand. The boy had written it this morning. Just one line, barely legible, folded in half and tucked into her coat pocket when she wasn't. Looking, you said Micah was gone, but he hears everything now. She hadn't planned to ask anyone about it, but her feet brought her here, to the place where the sheriff signed the death certificate 10 years ago. The door creaked as she stepped inside. Dust settled in the corners. The counter hadn't changed. Neither had the smell, leather, sweat, and something faintly metallic. "Sheriff," she called. He stepped out from the back office slower than usual. One eye narrowed like he'd already heard what she was about to say. "Micah," she whispered. "That's my brother's name." The word hung between them. He pulled a toothpick from behind his ear. "You don't remember right." Her voice tightened. "He died in the fire." He stepped behind the counter. "Are you sure about that? You signed the form. You asked me to." She blinked. "No. You brought me the blanket with the burn mark. You said that's all that was left. I believed you." "No, I didn't." Her breath quickened. "You told me it was him. You told me not to look too close. I told you what you needed to hear. You said he was found under the bed. You were 17 and shaking. You didn't want the real story." She gripped the edge of the counter. "What was the real story? You tell me. You were there. I was locked out." His voice dropped. "Then how'd the matches get in your pocket?" She froze. "I never had." "You lit it." "No. You dropped it. That's what you said before." He nodded once. "And you believed me." "Like you needed to." She backed up. "You're lying." "You think so?" "I know what I remember. Memory's tricky, especially when it's tied to guilt. I didn't kill him." "Then stop trying to dig him back up." She looked him dead in the eye. "Who's the boy? Does it matter? He knows things. Lots of kids do. They hear stories. They twist them. He's not just a kid." "No," the sheriff said, voice flat. "He's a reminder, and this town doesn't like reminders." She stared at him. "You brought him to my door. You needed to reckon with what you buried." "I didn't bury him." He leaned in. "Didn't say you did, but you shut the lid." "What does that mean?" "It means we all agreed to let sleeping ghosts lie. He's not a ghost. Then treat him like a boy and stop digging into things that don't want to be uncovered." He carved his name into my table. "And Micah," the sheriff's jaw tightened. She pressed on. "How does he know about the cellar? About the marks? About the door sticking? Every house has creaks. He knew where the initials were. Kid Snoop. He looks like him." "That's not proof. He sounds like him." "You're grieving." "I stopped grieving 10 years ago. Grief changes shape. Maybe it came back with a face this time." She slammed the counter. "Tell me what really happened that night." He looked at the floor, picked up a pen, twirled it once, set it down. "You don't want it." "I do." "No. You want it to make sense. It never will. The truth isn't clean. It won't heal you. Tell me anyway." He sighed. "Your brother saw something he shouldn't have. Something in that church schoolhouse. Something that belonged to men with names carved into plaques. What kind of something? Pain. And who caused it? And they silenced him. He lit the fire himself. He wanted to burn it out. No. He thought it'd make them leave. That's not. He was a child. And you think children can't break under pressure. He didn't do it. Then who did?" She stared at him. "You tell me." "I just did." "No. You told me what keeps the town quiet." He leaned closer. "Don't let the sheriff hear you say that." "I'm saying it to him." He tapped the badge on his chest. "Then be careful." She turned to go. "Where are you headed?" he asked. "To the schoolhouse." He raised an eyebrow. "It's condemned." "Good. So no one will hear me scream when I find what I'm looking for." He didn't follow. Didn't stop her. The door closed behind her, and the sun hit her face like it was trying to push her back. She walked straight down the gravel road, past the market, past the well where her brother used to toss pennies, past the chapel with the boarded windows and bell tower that hadn't rung in years. The town stayed quiet. Too quiet. No children played, no doors creaked open. Every house watched her, or maybe remembered her. She didn't care. She had the boy's letter in her pocket and a name etched into her table, and the sheriff's words in her chest like coals. The ghosts weren't resting. They were waiting. She opened the guest room door and let the light fall in. The sheets were clean, the blanket folded, the window cracked just enough to let in breeze but not storm. She fluffed the pillow once, twice, then turned to him. This one's yours tonight. He stood in the hallway, barefoot, eyes narrowed. Come on, she said, gentler now. It's warm, and it's not Micah's room. He didn't move. You can't keep sleeping there. Why? It's not yours. He walked past her, slow and quiet, and stepped into the guest room like it was someone else's funeral. She watched him sit on the edge of the bed. He didn't lie down. You'll be fine, she said. He said nothing. She turned off the light and closed the door behind her. She was halfway down the stairs when it began. The scream cracked the silence in half. Not a cry, not a yell. Something animal, something torn. She ran back up. The door was open. He was gone. She followed the sound to her brother's room. He was curled up, face buried in the same worn pillow, fists clenched tight against his chest. His back heaved, breath sharp and uneven. She knelt beside him. What was that? He didn't look at her. Don't move me again. You scared me. Don't. You can't just... It remembers me. She stared at him. The bed. The room. You've never been in this house before. I've always been here. She stood. You're not Micah. I didn't say I was. Then stop talking like him. I sleep where I belong. She looked around. Same curtains, same dent in the dresser drawer from where Micah kicked it once during a tantrum. The poster is still on the wall, half peeled. The shoe mark on the baseboard she never cleaned. She had sealed this room, sealed it with grief and duct tape. And still he'd found his way in. You can't stay in here, she said. Yes, I can. No, I belong here. She walked out and closed the door hard. That night, she locked her own. She told herself it wasn't fear. It wasn't about the scream, or the way he breathed, or how he twisted into the shape Micah used to take when he had fevers. It wasn't about how he knew where the flashlight was in the drawer, or how he set the shoes next to the bed like they used to do when storms came through. It wasn't fear, but the lock clicked anyway. She didn't sleep. At some point near dawn, she stood by her window and looked toward the room at the end of the hall. The door was shut. No sound. She walked down the hallway. Turned the knob. It wasn't locked. He was asleep. The covers hadn't moved, but the closet door was wide open, and the photograph of Micah on the dresser had fallen flat. She picked it up, set it right again. His face stared back, smiling, tooth missing, one arm around her shoulder. The boy hadn't touched the frame, she told herself. It fell on its own. Things do that. Gravity, wind, memory. The next morning, she made oatmeal, set 2 bowls down. He came in like he always did, sat down like he always did, but now she watched his hands more closely. Did you have another dream? She asked. He shook his head. Then why scream like that? He didn't answer. Was it the room? No. Then what? He stirred his oatmeal. It's when I'm not in the room. She leaned forward. What happens then? I forget. Forget what? My shape. She blinked. Your shape. He nodded. When I leave that bed, I start falling apart. That doesn't make sense. It does to me. Do you hear yourself? He looked at her. I hear everything. She looked away. You're not safe. I never was. You mean you don't know who I am? She stood, bowl in hand. You're in my house. And I don't know if you're sick or troubled or just playing me. I'm not playing. Then what are you doing? I'm waiting. For what? For the part where you remember too. She dropped the bowl into the sink. That's not your room. It remembers my weight. It's Micah's. Exactly. She turned. Then get out. He stood. You think I like this? She said. I think you miss him. You don't know what I miss. I know the closet still smells like him. She froze. He walked toward the door, stopped. You can lock me out, he said, but the house lets me back in. She said nothing. He left the room. She followed. This time, she left her own door open and set a chair against the handle anyway. She heard the whispering again, not in his sleep this time. It was deliberate, rhythmic. She stood at the top of the stairs, listening. No storm outside, no wind under the windows, just the boy on the floor, speaking soft to the boards like they could answer back. She crept down. Each step groaned louder than the last. He didn't stop. She reached the doorway and leaned in. He was crouched near the far wall, hands flat, mouth close to the floor. What are you saying? She asked. He didn't startle. He just looked up, eyes glassy. Why are you talking to the floor? She said again, his head tilted. Because that's where the words are. She crossed the room in 3 steps, grabbed his arm, pulled him back. What words? You wrote them. She let go. No, I didn't. He pointed. There. The floorboard closest to the dresser was darker than the rest, slightly raised. She stared at it, heart thudding. She hadn't touched that section since they repainted the room after the fire. No reason to, no memory tied to it. Until now. Move, she said. He stepped aside. She knelt, ran her fingers along the edge. The nails had rotted slightly at the corner. She wedged a butter knife under the plank and lifted. It came up with a crack, like a breath being held too long. 4 envelopes. All yellowed, all sealed. Her name was written on the back of each, in the handwriting of a child. Her handwriting. She picked up the top one and turned it over, addressed to Micah. She sat back on her heels. The boy crouched beside her. You don't remember writing them? She shook her head. You did. I would have known. You forgot. She broke the seal, pulled out the folded page, crayon on lined paper, block letters, uneven spacing. Micah. Don't tell them. Not even if they say it'll stop. They lie. You know they lie. You said it burned, but you didn't scream. That's good. Don't scream. They hear that. I'll get the key soon. Then we go. I promise. Her vision blurred. The boy whispered, You promised. She grabbed the second envelope, tore it. Another letter, shorter. They said if I write, I'm safe. I don't believe them. I think they're watching the letters. Don't write back. Just wait. Don't open the closet. Don't look at your wrists. Don't say anything. Her hands shook. I didn't write this, she said. You did. No. You remember now. She opened the 3rd letter. Micah. They know about the well. They said if you speak again, Mama won't wake up next time. I told them you couldn't read. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't be mad. I had to. She dropped it. Breath caught. The boy picked up the last one, handed it to her slowly. This one matters, he said. She opened it. If this gets to you, it means I couldn't stop it. Don't trust the sheriff. He knew. They all knew. They locked the door on purpose. The fire was never meant to kill you, just scare you. But something went wrong. I think they're coming for me next. It was signed, Sarah. She covered her mouth. The sound that came out wasn't a cry. It was too low, too rough, like a memory dug up too fast. I don't remember writing that. But your hand did, the boy said. How do you know these are real? He pointed at her. Because you just remembered the closet. She stared at him. You said I promised to get the key. You did. I don't remember. You will. She folded the letters back slowly, like they might fall apart. Why were they hidden? She asked. Because you were supposed to forget. Who made me forget? He looked toward the window. Same ones who made him burn. She looked down at the floor, the empty space beneath the board. How long were they there? He shrugged. Since before the fire. She slid the letters into her pocket. You're not sleeping in that room tonight, she said. He didn't answer. You're staying downstairs. I won't. You will. You're scared. I should be. He stood. I walked to the door. Stopped. You think hiding letters makes them disappear? He said. It doesn't. She stayed kneeling on the floor long after he left. The room felt smaller, not haunted, just remembered, and the memory was louder than ghosts. She didn't tell the boy where she was going, just said, Don't follow. He didn't answer. He never did when she tried to draw a line. But this time, the silence followed her longer than usual. The graveyard sat behind the chapel, weeds swallowing the fence, stones leaning like drunks. She hadn't been back since the day they lowered Micah's box into the soil, and the sky didn't cry for him. She found the headstone easy. The etching was shallow, weather already eating the letters. Micah, April to August. That was all. Not even the year. Just the months. As if he'd only existed for a season. She knelt and placed her palm on the dirt. Cold. It's always cold here. The funeral came back in pieces. Hymns sung too softly. Her mother clutching her own dress like it was the only thing holding her together. The sheriff with his hat pressed to his chest, lips tight. And then that man. The one no one recognized. Stood by the edge of the crowd. Old still. Hat low, coat long. Never spoke. Never looked away from the casket. Never stepped forward. She remembered asking, Who's that? No one had answered. She stood now and turned to leave, then froze. The boy. standing at the tree line, half in shadow, half in sun, watching her. But he wasn't alone. Behind him stood the same man, same coat, same hat, same stillness. "Hey!" she called. Neither moved. She stepped forward. The boy turned, walked deeper into the trees. She ran. Branches caught her sleeves. Thorns grabbed at her calves. She reached the clearing. The boy was gone. So was the man. Only the wind stayed, and something else, scratched into the bark of the nearest tree. MS. We remember. She pressed her thumb to it. Fresh. No moss in the cuts. No time to fade. She stepped back, breathing hard. The boy's voice echoed in her skull. "You're supposed to remember." She turned and ran. By the time she reached the house, her legs burned. He was sitting at the table, calm, barefoot, a glass of water in front of him. She didn't speak at first, just stood there, watching him. "You followed me," she said. "No." "You were there." He looked up. "You told me not to come." "There was a man." "I know." "You saw him?" He nodded. "Who is he?" "Don't know." "You're lying." "No." "Then why does he keep showing up?" The boy tilted his head. "He was at the funeral." Her blood went cold. "How do you know that?" "You told me." "I didn't." "Yes, you did." "That night, you slept with your shoes on." "You said—" He didn't say a word, just stood there like he already knew how it ended. She sat down across from him. "I don't remember that. But you said it. You weren't alive then." "I was." "That's not possible." He stared at the glass. "He watches the ones who carry it." "Carry what?" "The forgetting." She looked at his hands. Still burned, still cracked. "You saw him too, didn't you?" "That night." He nodded. "Before the fire." "What was he doing?" "Nothing." "That's worse." "I know." She leaned forward. "You're not afraid of him." "No." "Why?" "Because he doesn't touch. He just waits." "For what?" "For someone to finally say it out loud." She pushed back from the table. "Say what?" "You know." She stood. "I buried my brother. I lit candles. I sat by that grave every week for a year. But you never said it." "Said what?" "That they let him die." The wind shifted outside. Window panes rattled. She closed her eyes. What would it change? Maybe nothing. Then why does he keep coming? "Because it matters," she whispered. "To who?" "To the house." She turned to the stairs. "I need to lie down." "Don't lock the door." "I will." "I know." She paused halfway up. "If he comes again, don't follow him." "He doesn't walk," the boy said. "He just stands." "He makes you follow." She didn't answer. That night, the man didn't return. But the boy left the front door open anyway. And in the morning, there were muddy prints by the grave of Micah's shoes, too big for the boy's feet, too fresh to be from memory. She woke before the sun, drawn by a sound she couldn't place. Not footsteps, not doors. A hush, a pull. She stepped outside barefoot, chill biting her skin, and saw him at the edge of the woods. The boy, standing still, like something called him farther in. She didn't ask. She followed. The trees swallowed them quickly. No path, no birds, just roots and silence and something slow dragging at her breath. He walked ahead steady, didn't look back, didn't speak. She knew where he was going, long before she saw it. The well. It had been sealed once, boarded up, then forgotten. Now it stood open again, stone rim broken in places, rope still tied to the beam above. No bucket. He stopped 2 feet from it and pointed. She moved closer. The water glinted in the early gray. Something floated just below the surface. She leaned in. Collar, red, faded. The brass tag is dark with grime. She knew it without reading. "Chester," she whispered. The boy nodded. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on the stone. "That's not possible." He didn't reply. "He died in the fire." "No." "He was in the barn." "He was in the well." She shook her head. "I saw his body." "You saw what they gave you." She stared harder. The tag turned. The etched name caught light for a second. "Micah's dog," it read. Her brother had scratched it himself with a screwdriver. Said he didn't trust store-bought engraving. She backed away. "This isn't real." "It is." "No one's been here in years." "Someone came last night." She spun toward him. "Did you?" He shook his head. "Then who?" He just stared. She turned in a slow circle. Wood silent. Too still. This is a trick. On who? Me. Or him. She pointed at the well. How does that dog's collar show up after a decade? You buried memories, not things. No, no, I burned them. I emptied the barn. I saw the ashes. You didn't look in the water. She stepped closer. You think I believe that collar sat there for 10 years, untouched? I think it waited. For what? For you. She looked back at the well. The water barely moved, still as glass. But the collar turned. Again. Slow. Like it heard them. What else is down there? He didn't answer. She picked up a rock, threw it. The splash shattered the stillness. Water slapped against the sides, then settled again. The collar was gone. She blinked. Where'd it go? He stepped beside her. It sank. She turned to him. Did you put it there? No. You swear. I don't lie. Everyone lies. I'm not everyone. She stepped back from the rim. Why would someone do this? To make you look. Why now? Because you're ready. I'm not. You followed. That doesn't mean I believe. It means you remember. She crouched, pressed her hands to the stone. Cold seeped in fast. Her breath left in a rush. He used to drink from this well. I know. He threw pennies in and made wishes. I know. He asked for the sheriff to get struck by lightning once. Didn't work. She smiled, then hated herself for it. Why are you showing me this? She asked. Because something's coming. She looked up. What? A return. She stood. Of what? The night you left him. Her chest tightened. I didn't leave him. You ran. I was told to. By who? She paused. I don't remember. Yes, you do. She turned back toward the trees. We're leaving. He didn't move. Now, she said. Still, he stood. I said, you should pull it up. What? The rope? She stared at it, frayed, wet, dangling into the dark. I'm not touching that. Then it'll stay. Good. But it won't stop. She turned and started walking. The boy followed. Halfway back through the trees, she stopped, looked over her shoulder. The well stood still, silent, but she swore she heard something dripping. Back at the house, she washed her hands 3 times. The smell of the well clung. Rust, rot, something older. The boy sat at the table. You think this is all happening for me? She asked. No? Then who? He looked up. Micah. He's dead. Is he? Yes. Then why is he still showing you things? She didn't answer. He stood. Don't go back there alone, he said. Why? It remembers who dropped the bucket first. She stared at him. He walked away. And for the first time, she wasn't sure which boy had just left the room. The sound cut through her dream. Not loud, but steady. Scrape, pause. Scrape again. Metal against wood. Her eyes snapped open. She sat up fast. Listened. Again. Slow, deliberate carving. She threw the blanket off and stepped barefoot onto the cold floorboards. No wind, no storm, just that one sound. She crept down the hallway. The clock read 3:11. Not late enough for the sun, too late for excuses. When she reached the kitchen, he was at the table, kneeling. On the bench, knife in hand. The blade moved slowly, almost reverent. She crossed the room and snatched his wrist. Where did you get that? He didn't fight. Didn't flinch. She yanked the knife away and held it between them. Answer me. He looked up, calm. I had to do it. You carved into the table. I had to. She looked down. New lines, deeper this time. Letters. A sentence forming. They buried me in silence. Her breath caught. What does that mean? He whispered. I had to leave before they made me forget. The words didn't come out like a child's, not in sound, not in rhythm. She backed up. Say that again. He stood, slow. They told me to forget. Who did? The ones with badges. Her hand shook around the knife. You're just a boy. No, I'm not. She dropped the knife to the table. That's my brother's voice. He nodded. It remembers. She stepped closer. Stop it. You used to sing to me when the lights went out. Her knees went weak. No. You'd hum first so I wouldn't cry. You'd tap twice on the floor before you came in. Said it was our secret. Her throat tightened. I never told anyone that. You didn't have to. You remember it now. She reached for him, fingers trembling. Who are you? He stepped back. I don't know. Are you Micah? I was. No, you're not. I was. She pressed both hands to her head. This isn't possible. Neither is a collar floating for 10 years. You carved that sentence. What does it mean? They didn't just bury my body. What else? My name, my voice. Why? To keep the story clean. She stared at the sentence again. They buried me in silence. You said they did. The sheriff? He nodded. Who else? The school. The church. The ones who smiled when Mama baked pies. Tears welled in her eyes. I was just a kid. So was I. She turned away. I can't do this. You already are. She looked at the clock. 3:17 now. She whispered, You're not real. He looked down. I'm what's left. Left of what? Him. No. You kept the room. Stop. You kept the photo. The boots. The initials. She sank into the chair, staring at the wood. Why now? Because the house is tired of being quiet. She reached out and touched the carving. It was still warm. She looked at him. You can't stay in that body. I don't plan to. What are you? I'm a memory. That's not a real answer. It's the only one that fits. She stood, dizzy. You said they made you forget. He nodded. They kept us in dark rooms. Said names didn't matter. Said if we spoke, others would suffer. You never told me. I wasn't allowed. You should have. You would have tried to save me. I should have. He touched the table again. They can't hide it anymore, she whispered. Are you dying? Maybe. Again? He smiled faintly. Still. She wiped her face. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Write it down. What? Everything. She looked at the sentence. I don't even know where to begin. You already did. She touched her pocket. The letters. Still there. He turned toward the hallway. Where are you going? She asked. To rest. You don't sleep. I remember how. She watched him walk slow, steps soft, fading down the hall. When he was gone, she ran her hand along the carved letters again. They didn't feel like hers, but they live with her now. And they weren't done yet. She waited until the diner lights went out, until the square emptied, until even the rusted wind chimes outside the church fell still. Then she walked, coat buttoned, hair tied back, boots soft on gravel. She didn't flinch when the owl screeched or when her shadow rippled across the courthouse windows. She knew where the sheriff kept the spare key. Same place he always had, under the warped planter by the stairs. Her brother once told her, if they don't hide it right, they don't think you'll ever look. She slipped inside. The office smelled like paper and dust, and coffee burned too long. She didn't bother with the front desk. She headed straight to the back room where the real things lived. The filing cabinet was locked. She tried the top drawer. Nothing. The second one gave after one tug. Inside, ledgers stacked tight, brown spines cracked with age. She pulled the third one from the bottom. It was half burned. Pages blackened on the edges, corners curled like leaves in a fire. She opened it slow, afraid it might crumble. The ink was faded, but the title at the top read, Protective Custody, Youth Intake Log. Her mouth dried, names, dates, ages, reasons. She scanned the first few pages, truancy, theft, disruptive influence, excessive questioning. One by one, the children were placed in various unnamed institutions. Then, halfway down a scorched page, she found it. Micah S. Age, 10, placement, Whitewood program, date, redacted status, active, crossed out in thick ink. She traced the line with her finger. Crossed out didn't feel administrative. It felt final. Below him were two more. Thomas R. Status pending, Eliza W. Status lost. She didn't recognize the names. No birth dates, no family contact, just listed like items. Not children. She flipped the page. Blank. She flipped again. Nothing. The fire had eaten most of the later entries. She turned back to the first page and read the preamble in small, tight cursive, to be kept under sheriff's supervision. Reform to occur off-record. Secrecy required for community trust. She stared at the word reform. It wasn't the kind that meant help. She shoved the ledger into her coat and moved fast. Locked the drawer again, stepped out, shut the door soft, returned the key to the planter. On the walk back, she passed the church. A candle flickered behind the stained glass. It wasn't Sunday. She got home and dropped the ledger on the table. The boy was already sitting there, hands folded. "You went looking," he said. "You knew I would." "What did you find?" She slid it across to him. He didn't open it. "They crossed out his name," she said. "I know. They marked him active before that. They always do. Until they don't, there were others. There always are. Tomas, Eliza. You know them?" "No. But I remember the smell of their clothes." She sat down. "You were one of them." "We all were. Some longer than others." "What was the program?" "They said we asked too many questions. Said we weren't right for school." "Whitewood." He nodded. "I thought that place was for sick kids." "It was. Just not in the way they said." She opened the ledger again. "They kept no contact info. No addresses. They didn't want anyone to follow." "Did they hit you?" "No." "What did they do?" "They quieted us." She looked at his eyes. Still too old. Still wrong. "How did Micah get out?" "They let him run." "Why?" "He had something they couldn't break." "What?" "You." Her throat tightened. "That's not true." "He talked about you. Said if he ever made it back, you'd know what to do." She closed the book. "I don't." "You're doing it." She stared at the burned edge. How many names were there? More than fit in one book. She stood and paced. "Why would the sheriff keep this?" "Because even monsters need records." "I thought he was your friend once." "He was. Then he wasn't." "What happened?" "He stopped asking questions." She looked at the clock. 2:06. She whispered, "Is he going to come for me?" "Yes." "When?" "Soon." She sat down again. "Do you think Micah knew?" "Knew what?" "That he wouldn't make it out." "He hoped you would." Her hand pressed flat on the ledger. "I need to find the others. They're not here anymore. Then I'll find where they went." "You won't like the answer." "I don't care." He stood. "Be ready." "For what?" "For them to come knocking before dawn." She didn't ask who they were. She already knew. She hadn't touched the stove in years. Not since the fire. It still worked, technically, but she'd never trusted the sound of its breath. Tonight, though, the cold wouldn't leave her bones, and the boy kept glancing toward it like it owed him something. She pulled out the metal tray. Ash flaked like brittle skin. The inner pipe rattled when she twisted it. Dust poured out. Her hands blackened quickly, fingers pressing into soot and rust. She reached deeper, felt something not metal, not ash. Paper. She paused, then gently pulled it free. Folded, brittle, edges singed. A stack. Not just one, tied in a crude loop of string. Her breath caught as she sat on the floor. The boy moved to the doorway and leaned, silent. She untied the string. The top page had 3 words, crooked, tight. "If you're reading..." She flipped to the next. "I didn't tell her." "I didn't. They said if I speak, she burns too." Her throat closed. She knew the handwriting. She'd traced it once on birthday cards, carved it into tree trunks. "Micah's." She whispered, "He wrote this." The boy said nothing. She read the next line. "I heard them again. They think I'm asleep. They say it's time to move us. But I won't go. I hid the rope in the vent. If they find it, they'll say I tried to run." She looked up. "He planned to fight back." The boy nodded. She kept reading. The next page was ripped. "Sarah cried today. I wanted to tell her not to be scared, but I remembered what the sheriff said. If I open my mouth, she goes next." Her hands shook. "I was just a kid," she murmured. "I didn't know." He stepped closer. "He did." She turned the page. "I saw Eliza coughing again. They won't take her outside. Thomas won't eat. I saved the matches, but not for fire. I thought if I lit one, maybe someone would find us. But they only smelled smoke and beat him for it." She paused. "Thomas, Eliza, they were on the list." He crouched beside her. "They never got out." The next entry started mid-thought. "They made us watch the sermon again. Told us our silence was devotion. I kept looking at the window. If I broke it, would she hear me? Would she come?" She wiped her cheek. "I didn't hear you," she whispered. "You did," the boy said. "But they told you it was the wind." She read the last page. The writing was rushed. "Tonight, they said it ends. But not for me. They told me if I speak, she burns too. I think..." The rest was missing, torn clean across. "That's where it ends?" she asked. The boy nodded. "He never got to finish." She set the pages down like they might shatter. They used him, she said. They made him hold it all. And he did, the boy replied, for me. He nodded. She stood. He didn't light the fire. No. They did. Yes. To cover it. To end the record. She turned to the stove, looked down into the dark metal mouth. This house held it all, she whispered. And now it's telling you, he said. She stepped back. I should have seen it. You weren't meant to. They made me believe he was broken. They made you forget he was brave. She stared at the journal. He stayed silent to keep me alive and still told the truth when he thought no one would find it. She crouched and gathered the pages again. I have to show this. They'll deny it. Then I'll make it louder. The boy looked at her, eyes too steady. They'll come for you. I'm done hiding. He said nothing. She took the papers, slid them into the folds of her coat. Then she paused. The fire door, she said. What about it? He wrote that someone locked it. He waited. She whispered. It wasn't an accident. He stared. She stepped forward. Do you know who? I saw him. Who? He looked down. The sheriff. The word landed like a stone. He said he tried to save Micah. He lied. He said Micah started the fire. He watched him burn. She closed her eyes. And I thanked him. I called him brave. He let you. She gritted her teeth. He smiled at Mama's funeral and shook your hand with the one that turned the key. She didn't speak for a long moment. The wind pushed against the windows. The fire cracked. Then she whispered, I want him to know I remember now. He already knows. She walked to the door. He said, Where are you going? To give this town its truth back. You're not afraid. I'm still shaking. Good, he said. That means you're ready. She opened the door. The cold hit her throat like smoke. This time she didn't shut it behind her. The doors didn't creak. They sighed. The kind of sound old wood makes when it knows your name. She stepped inside the schoolhouse with her coat still buttoned and the papers pressed to her chest like a second heart. The room was darker than it should have been. The windows were unboarded, but the light bent wrong through the glass. Dust hung thick in the air, unmoving. She hadn't been inside since the funeral service. Before that, it was Micah's favorite place. He used to pretend he was a preacher, said the pulpit made him feel taller, said the pews listened better than people did. Now the pews looked smaller, closer, worn down, but not empty. She moved to the first row, ran her fingers along the edge. Then she saw it. Scratches, dozens, not random, not accidental, letters, names, RT, Marla 6 help, silence is holy. She moved to the next pew. More names, small, crooked, scratched with fingernails or dull metal, one etched deeper than the others. A single name carved over and over, Micah. Her knees buckled. She sat hard. It wasn't just once. His name appeared on every row, sometimes neat, sometimes I panicked, sometimes buried beneath new layers. The boy had said he was brought here, that others had been too. She looked toward the pulpit. I walked slowly up the aisle. Her boots echoed soft and sure. She climbed the steps, stood where Micah once stood. The pulpit was cracked. A drawer hung half open. She pulled it gently. Inside, molded papers, curled photos, a notebook. She opened it. Names again. Dozens. First names only. Thomas, Eliza, Micah, Noah, Grace. Beside each, CC, SR, LJ. Initials, maybe staff, maybe categories. Next to Micah's, SR. She turned the page. The handwriting changed, slanted now. A child again. I said the verse. I stayed quiet. But they said I spoke with my eyes. They said the body tells secrets, even the mouth won't. I tried not to move. She flipped forward. They said silence is sacred, but I think it just makes them louder. She shut the notebook. Below the pulpit, carved into the wood floor, more words. We were here. Not past tense. Not forgotten. A declaration. A refusal. She stepped down, heart in her throat. The boy was in the doorway now, still, watching. You knew I'd come here, she said. He nodded. You could have told me. I did. Just not with words. She walked to the third row, touched a fresh mark, still sharp at the edges. I thought it was just him, she said. It never was. How many? More than names. She turned. Why didn't anyone stop it? Because prayers hide things. She faced the altar again. The town believed this place was holy. It was. To them. To you. He looked down. It was a cage. She pointed at the carvings. These kids were trying to leave a record. They were trying not to disappear. She whispered, "Micah's name is on every row. He didn't want you to forget." She moved toward the door, paused. "You said the house remembers," she said. He nodded. "You meant this house." "I meant all of them." She opened the door. The wind rushed in. He followed. Back outside, the sun was rising slowly, pale and gray, not warm. She looked back at the building. "Do you think they'll tear it down?" "They'll try." "But the names? They're in the woods now." She touched the frame. "Then it won't forget either." "No," he said. "It's like you." She turned to him. "You buried things," he said, "but you didn't let them rot." She whispered, "What happens now?" "We write the rest." The knock came just after midnight. 3 hard raps, no hesitation, no pause. She froze where she stood, hand still clutching the kettle. It whined behind her. The boy looked up from the table, eyes already knowing. "You don't have to open it," he said. She moved to the window instead, peeled back the curtain with 2 fingers. The sheriff stood on the porch, but he wasn't alone. 2 men flanked him, tall, stiff, dressed like officials, but not from anywhere nearby. Not uniforms, suits, gloves, plain black coats. She whispered, "He brought others." The boy's voice was calm. "They're not new." She backed away from the window. "What does that mean?" "They came before." When the fire started, she turned to him. "What do they want now?" He slid off the chair. "Same thing." Silence. She reached for the bolt on the door and slid it across, then pushed a chair against the handle. "You said they let Micah run," she said. "They let him think he did." She stepped back. "They're not taking you." "You don't get to stop them." "I do now." Another knock, louder, then the sheriff's voice. "Sarah, we don't want trouble. We just need the boy." She didn't answer. The boy crawled under the table, pulled his knees to his chest. "I've been here before," he said. "I know." Same spot. Same feeling. She grabbed the rifle from behind the stove. She hadn't fired it in years. Didn't even know if the shell inside was good, but she held it like she meant to. The sheriff knocked again. "He's not safe here. He's safer than with you." She called back. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "Good." One of the other men spoke now. "My voice is smooth, Eastern, out of place. We're here under order." She stepped closer to the door. "Whose order?" "Town council." "State memory division." She blinked. "That's not real." "It is now. You came to erase him, to retrieve him. He's a child." "No, he's a record holder." She shouted, "Then burn your ledgers and leave him be." "You read it, didn't you?" the sheriff said, voice lower now. "The journal." The names she didn't answer. "You shouldn't have. Too late. Some things stay buried for a reason. Some things grow back." Silence. Then a thud against the door. The chair jolted. The boy whispered, "They'll keep trying." She looked down at him. "Why under the table?" He touched the wood. "Because it remembers me." "They think you're dangerous." "I am." To them, she pressed her palm flat to the surface. The carving was still there. "They buried me in silence. Fresh, clean, alive. They're scared of what you might become," she said. "They should be." Another thud, louder, then a splintering crack. She raised the rifle, aimed at the door. "Leave," she shouted. "You don't want to fire again," the sheriff called. "Not like last time." She stepped forward. "You started that fire." No response. She yelled louder, voice shaking. "You locked the door." "You stood there while it burned." Still silent. "I was a child," she said, "but I remember now." Another crash. The top hinge snapped. The boy crawled out from under the table. I stood beside her. "If they come in, I tell them everything," he said. She looked at him. "To who?" "To the ones who still believe in light." The last hinge cracked. The door tilted, then stopped. Something held it. Not her. Not the chair. Just stopped. The men outside stepped back. "You feel that?" the smooth voice asked. Then the sheriff. "Something's wrong." Another second passed. Then footsteps retreating. Then nothing. She waited. 10 breaths. 20. Then opened the door. Empty porch. No footprints. No truck. Just night. She stepped outside. Cold air rushed her face. "Where'd they go?" she whispered. The boy stood beside her. They heard it too. Heard what? The house. She looked back at the doorway. The table sat still, but something had changed. She turned to him. "We're not done." "No," he said, "but we're not alone anymore." She stepped back inside. The boy followed. She shut the door behind them, left it unlocked. She woke to silence, the kind that didn't come with peace but with absence. The boy's bed was empty, the blanket folded once. The pillow was still shaped like someone had rested their head there hours before. She called his name. Just once. It felt strange in her mouth. Too familiar now. No answer. She checked the porch. No footprints. No note. Nothing missing, because he never really brought anything with him. The wind had died sometime during the night. The cold held still. The sky outside hadn't turned yet, but she knew dawn was coming. She could feel it in her teeth. She walked back inside. Each floorboard groaned under her weight. Slower now, not resisting her, not complaining, just remembering. The table sat as it always had, center of the room, 4 legs planted like roots. She pulled out the same chair she'd pulled for Micah, then again for the boy. Sat down, let her fingers trail across the grain. The old crack still split down the center, but now it wasn't jagged. It was smooth, like something had accepted it. Her eyes moved to the carvings. The first, still faint, M+S. Childish, crooked, done with joy and no permission. Below it, Micah, etched deeper, sharper, the one the boy had made when he first arrived. And beside that, her own name, Sarah. She didn't remember carving it, but it was there, clean, deliberate. The S curved the way she used to write it before school made her change. She touched the letters. The wood was warm. She didn't cry right away. That came slowly, quiet, like the kind of grief that sneaks in through breath instead of tears, the kind that had no wail, no shudder, just weight. She sat with it, with the memories, of a boy too brave for his age, of a town that taught silence louder than truth. That night they came and left without him, of the wind holding the door shut, like the house had taken a side. She had asked so many questions, too late, but the answers still came, through letters, through journal pages, through carvings in pews, through a boy who whispered what the fire couldn't kill. She looked across the table. No one sat there now. Still, she whispered, "Thank you." She reached for the ledger on the counter. Opened. It to Micah's name, crossed out, but not gone. She took a pen and circled it. Once, then again. She closed the book. The sun began to rise outside. Soft light spilled onto the table. The wood shimmered. For a second, the names looked new, fresh, like they'd just been carved, like they were still being written. She stood, walked to the stove, and lit a small flame. This time, it didn't roar. It whispered. She made tea, poured 1 cup, set it across from her. Didn't touch it. Just let it sit there, warm, waiting. The house didn't speak, but it didn't need to. She had finally heard it. She had finally heard him. She ran her fingers over the table one more time. The names didn't blur. The edges didn't dull. They were in the woods now, too deep to be sanded, too true to be washed away. They wouldn't fade, not again.